Hello there, my name is Christian, and this is NoCode with NetMinds, a series to learn how to make your life easier using tech without having to write a single line of code. Today, we're going to create a system that's going to help you manage the information of any business process. The example that we're going to take is how can you manage the information of all your clients in what is called a CRM, a customer relationship manager. Let's get to it. So in every business process, you always have a lot of information that you need to store, manage, and view, and even analyze. So what we're going to do today is that we're going to go through a specific tool called Airtable that is going to allow us to see what is the power of a database, right? So we're going to focus today in the concept of the database relationships, and how that could work in our benefit. Now, specifically with the CRM, what we're going to do is that we're going to see how can you have all the sales pipeline of your users since they're a prospect until they purchase one of your products. What this is going to help us is also to understand how can we apply the same to other business processes. It could be on procurement, on financials, or any other process, right? So what I want to show you here is not just how to build a web app that is going to help you manage any business process, but also for you to understand what is the power of a database in any software that you are going to build, or any software that you handle, right? So the important thing to know here is that in any business process, just as in any piece of software, the most critical part is the data and the information that is stored and transferred between different activities and actors, right? So today, what we're going to do with the example of a CRM, a customer relationship manager, we're going to see how we can create an app that is going to help us understand, manage, and store all the information about our clients. But it's also going to help us understand how any web app or mobile app works behind, specifically on how data is used and stored and transferred. So the concept we're going to use today, and not just for today, but for any mobile app and web app that you're going to create in the future, is database relationships. This is one of the most important and critical concepts to learn from. And specifically is the parent and child relationship. You're going to see this in any database. And just to get your head around it, think about it like in a family, right? You have a parent that can have different children. So for example, in this case, we have two parents. Each one of them, one has three children and the other one has two children. But each one of those children can also have other children. So now becomes a parent of a child, or this becomes a parent of three children. We're going to see it better with the example on the CRM. So let's get to it. So before we go and build it, I want to show you the end result and use it to explain better the concept of database relationships, right? So, okay, what we see here is we have four different clients, right? Michael, John, Emily, and Lauren, and each one of them is assigned to a different user, right? Christian and Laura, right? So Christian is the salesperson that is attending Michael and John, and Laura is the one attending Emily and Lauren. So here you can see that Christian is a parent of Michael and John. And at the same time, Laura is a parent to Emily and Lauren. So you start to see visually how these relationships work. In this case, we're going to be able to see like the list, right, of all the sales process that we have. But also we're going to see like more detail of each one of them. So the name of each one of those clients, what is the status of those clients, and even the interactions with each one of those clients, right? So here we can see the second level, right? Because what we see here is, for example, Michael has three different interactions. And in this case, these three interactions are children from Michael, right? Because it's like he was able to create three children from the information and the interaction that he has been going through, right? So if you go to interactions here, you're going to be able to see, for example, that Michael has these three interactions, right? So you can see here what we're going to be able to do is to record each one of those messages or interaction that we have had with our clients. Either it could be an email, a call, or anything else. We're also going to be able to take a look at what views are, right? So you have a database here, and there are different ways to view it, and that's going to help you a lot. So for example, in this case, you can also see the same information. This is the same database. We're just changing how it looks, right? And we're changing it to a workflow. right? So here you can see each client in which stage of the process they're in. So we can see here that there are two that are just prospects, one that is interested in the product and one that is in progress of making a purchase. And finally, we're going to also be able to see how we can make new entries to our system and how we can control and even see that avoid any mistakes when entering information, right? So we're going to create a small form just as this to add any new interaction with our clients. Okay, so let's start. We're going to go to airtable.com. We're going to create an account. And then after you create the account, you're going to be here, right? So you're going to click here on add a workspace and you're going to name it as you want. Let's say in this case, we're going to have tutorial. And here's where you're going to store all the apps that you create, right? Under this category. And you can have different categories, right? And we're going to create our first base. In this case, we're going to do it from scratch. So once you click there, it's going to create a new database and we're going to put a name here. Let's name this new database CRM Lite, right? Just to put a name there, you can put any name that you want. And you can even choose a color. I'm going to choose this color right here. Right? So now you have this name. And the first step that you're going to make here is you're going to create all the structure of the database. That's the first step that you always need to do on any web app or mobile app. Right? So if you remember, we have three sets of data. We have the users, so it's the people who are going to sell our product. We're going to have our clients, or the people that are going to interact with our users. And then at the end, we have the interactions. So all those messages are all the interaction that the sales the sales team has had with each one of those clients. So we're going to create that here, right, in this way. So we're going to double click here, and we're going to put a name on each one of those, right? So as I was saying, so we're going to have the users. We're going to click here on add, create empty table, and we're going to put here clients. And finally, again, create empty table, and we're going to put here interactions. Now that we have created the three databases, we're going to see the structure of each one of those, right? So we're going to go here, and we're going to see what type of data we're going to store for each one of those records. So in this case, for users, we're going to see what information do we want to store from each user, right? And something very important here, we're going to have to take into account two things. One, that each record needs to have an unique identifier. So usually, if you have clients or you have users, you will use the email, right? Because that's something that is specific for that record. And the second thing to take into account is that each field that we add to that specific record needs to have a type. So for example, if it's a text, an image, or a multiple choice. This is relevant not just to help us understand our database better or to help us organize the information, but also going to help us later to control and even avoid mistakes when creating new records, right? Because by having the formats, just as an example for the email, it's going to validate that the record that you're entering there or the field and the information that you're entering on that field has the correct format. So that's going to help us a lot. So something I like to do when I'm starting a web app with Airtable is that I eliminate all the records that are created by default. So you can see here that there are like 3 empty records. So I delete that. And then I delete also all the default fields that you have in the database. So you just right click here and click delete field. So I'm going to do the same for the rest of the databases. Okay, now that we're done, we're going to start creating the fields in each one of those tables, right? So each one of these, the users, clients, and interactions are a table in our database. And what I usually will recommend is to start with the main table that you will have. Like in this case, the most important one is the clients one, because that's the one that is going to dictate how all our app works. So as I was mentioning before, it's very important that each record has a unique identifier. So in the case of our clients, one field that we can use to identify each customer is the email address, right? Because we're going to be sure that it is something unique to that specific client. So we're going to create that field. And here, we're going to customize field type. We're going to name it differently. We're going to change it to email. And here, we're going to select from this list. We're going to go to email and click save. And now what this is going to do is that it's going to validate that every information that we put here has the format of an email. So we're going to do the same with the rest of the field, right? So we have three specific fields that are going to be text and a single line of text because they're short. They're going to be usually be short. So we're going to have there the first name of the client, and we're going to assign this type, single line text, create field. And we're going to do the same for last name and company name. Now we're going to create other two fields with different types, right? So something more specific. So one of them is going to be the LinkedIn profile of that client. So what we can do here, we can just add field, and we're going to name it LinkedIn profile and select URL. So this is going to help us also that not just validate the format of that field or the information that we put on that field, but also is going to convert anything we put here in something clickable. So we can even navigate to that specific profile easier. And the other field is going to be the status. This is going to be the one that controls the workflow of our whole app, right? So in this case, it's going to show us or it's going to determine in which step of the process this specific client is right now. So if there's a prospect or is already a purchase. What we're going to do here, we're going to name it first, status, of course. And then we're going to select a specific type that is called single select. One customer can only have a specific status at a given time. You cannot have two different statuses. Right? So in this case, we're going to go with single select. We're going to leave it with color options. And here we're going to add all the alternatives that we can have in the process. So the ones we're going to use, I'm going to use 4 here. You can use like the ones that you want to use, but the ones that we're going to put here are prospect, interested, in progress, and purchase. Once you're here, you click anywhere and you click create field. So you're going to see that whenever you create a record, it's only going to allow you to select one of those options. So now let's see here with an example how the parent and child relationship works. So when you have a client can have multiple interactions. So here the client is going to work or it's going to function as a parent, and the interaction are going to be children of that client. So any no-code app and every every software to develop any app is going to have this exact same functionality. Is only called different in each one of those. In the case of Airtable, is called link to another record. So we are creating a link between the two databases. In this case, we're going to click here. We're going to add this field. We're going to name it interactions to have like the same name. Into another record, and then we're going to select the table that we're going to relate to this one. This is going to be interactions. And here, very important, it tells us if we want to allow to link different or multiple records. In this case, as we know that a client can have different interaction, 2, 3, or 4, we're going to leave it like this. If we know that the relationship is going to be always one-to-one, we just unclick it. So we create the field. That's it. We have the first part of our database. Okay, now that we have our clients table ready, we're going to go to the interactions table. Right. So here we're going to create only 4 fields. So we see that the clients link. So the database of clients is already there because it was created automatically. Right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create the other 3 fields that we need. The first one is going to be the ID. It's the ID of that specific record. And we're going to put there is we're going to merge the date and time of the record, but also with the message. We're going to do that later because we don't have that information yet. So just leave it a single line test and we're going to go back to it. Okay, next we're going to create the field where we're going to register the interaction that we had with the client. So either it was a phone call, an email, or a LinkedIn message, we're going to record that here. Right. So in this case, we need a field that is also text, but we need it to be on different lines, right? It's a long text. So we're going to put that this type of field, long text, and we're going to put here message. So once you have that, we're going to also add another field that is going to be created time, right? What this is going to do is that whenever we add a new record, it's going to register there in this field the time and date when we create this record, right? So we're going to put here created time. We just leave it like that, or we can change the format of the date here. I'm gonna put this that is looks nicer. You put create field, and you're gonna see that it's gonna automatically put, and every time that you create a new record, it's gonna automatically add the date and time of creation of that record, right? So we're gonna just delete the one here and leave just the first one, and we're gonna go back here to the ID. So now we're gonna create a formula here, right? Because we're gonna merge these two fields, the created time and the message, on this one to have just one long sentence here. So we're gonna do that step by step, as I was mentioning before. So you go to customize field and you put it as a formula, right? So the first part of the formula is gonna be this one. It's called datetime format, right? Because what we're gonna do is that we're gonna take the field. So you see here that when you're creating a formula, it lists all the fields available for you to put on that formula, right? So we have the three fields that you have here, right? So clients, message, created. So we're gonna take that the date created. That's the one that we have there. We're gonna put the comma here, and then we're gonna start this sentence, right? So now we need to say which format do we want the date to be put on this field, right? So you do it very easily, right? You just say, for example, you need two D's for the day, two M's for the month. We're gonna put four Y's for the year. Then I also want to put the time, the specific time, right? So I'm gonna put hour and minutes, and I close it like this. Okay. So now I have extracted the date from that from the other field, right? So the only thing missing is I want to merge this with the message, right? So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna use the ampersand. This is the one that helps us merge different fields together, right? We're gonna merge it with empty space, right? So to do an empty space, you usually just have this. You just put like double quotes and a space in the middle, right? Then you put another ampersand, and finally you put the other field, so it's message. So when you click save, it's going to automatically have that. So for example, in here, so following meeting next Tuesday. So what you will have here is that here in the ID, you're always going to have, right, like the date, the time, and the message. In that way, you're going to have like the identifier of that specific record. Okay, now let's do the same with the users table. Let's create all the fields for that table. So on the first field, what we're going to use in this case is the email of the specific user, because as we said before, that's easier to use as a unique identifier. So we're going to put here email. I also want to put the name of that salesperson, so it's easier to identify. And finally, so think about this as a grandparent to the clients, just as the clients are parents to the interaction. So in this case, the users are a parent of the client, and the client is the parent of the interaction. So here we're going to do just exactly the same. We're going to go here to link to another record, and we're going to name this field, for example, assign client, and to link to another record. But the table that we're going to link now is clients. And also we're going to leave it as allow linking to multiple records, because one specific user can have different clients. So we click create field. And that's it. We have configured all the tables in our database. Okay, before moving on to the last steps, let's populate the database. Yes, because if we have some records, it's gonna be easier to define the user experience and to define how we want to view the database and all the records. Okay, so in this case for users, I'm gonna just create two users. You can see here that I have populated the database with two records here in the users and with four records here in clients. So I just added like the email, the names, the company name, LinkedIn profile, and the status for each one. So in order for us to create the links between records, we're gonna have the option here with this plus, right? And you're gonna see that you will be able to have a list of all the available options. So now we can register which of those clients are assigned to the specific user. So I'm going to do that just in a second. So as you can see here, I have assigned 2 clients to each one of the users, right? Michael and Emily to Christian and John and Lauren to Laura, right? So by doing this, if I go to clients, I'm going to see that they have already been assigned to that specific client. So I don't have to do the work twice. And then I can do the same on assigning interaction to each one of my clients, right? So let's say let's say with Michael that Christian had the first interaction. So, but the person is gonna click here, add new record, right? And it's gonna click here and add the message. So let's say first meeting next Monday. Right? When you click there, you're gonna see that the interaction is already there. Right? Another thing that I will suggest is when you have this type of data that is too long for the field, you can change the height of each one of the record, right? So here you can say that tall, and then you can see all the interactions that are going to happen here, right? So you have a second interaction, right? You're going to click here again in add new record, and you're going to say, for example, meeting went great. I sent the offer. Oh, now you have the 2 interactions. And when I go to interactions, I'm actually going to see those 2 interactions to that specific client, right? And you can see that it automatically added the date it was created. One more thing to do is very helpful to have these groups. So in this case, I want to see the clients group by the user that is supporting them. So in this case, if I click group, pick a field to group by, and I go to users. So what you're going to be able to see here is each user, which clients are they supporting. Now you can see here that Christian is with Emily, with Michael and Emily, and Laura is here with John and Lauren, and it's looking much cleaner in this way. Okay, now to finish up our app, we're gonna see the concept of views, how we can have different views of the same database. So for example, in this case, we're gonna create a form view. So you see here that you can create different views. The one that we have here is that one called grid, but now we're gonna create a form. What this is gonna help us do is that it's going to allow us a way to create new records on this table with all the validations that we require. And we will even get a link or a web page that we can share where people can add new entries into this database, right? So we're going to click here on form, and you're going to see that it automatically creates a form with the fields of that table, right? So you see here, the fields of this table are client and message, because the other ones I created automatically. So the form is created only with the fields that a person can manually enter. And now we can just format it in the way we want. So for example, here, add interactions. You can click here and put a description that you want to make, right? So in this case, we're going to say, let us know the latest on our clients. So once you have that, you're going to click here on open form. We're going to see what happens. And here you get this link where, for example, you can say, okay, I just spoke with one of these clients, let's say Emily, and the latest with Emily is that we set up a meeting for next Monday, right? And you click submit. Now, after this, what you would like the form to do is to give you the possibility to send another entry, right? Because maybe you want to enter different interactions. So to do that, we go back here, and here when we see on the latest part, what it's doing right now is showing this message, but we don't want that. What we want is to show a submit another response button. So what this will do, and we will see that at this moment, what will happen is, for example, if we add another entry, let's say to Lauren, and we're gonna say we just sent an email to her. You click submit. I have the possibility here to click on this button, and it's going to open up again the form. So another thing to take into consideration is when you click here, you can say if that field is required. So for example, in this case, we want every interaction to have a client assigned and a message, right? So always look for that. Always analyze if you need that field to be required, and if it is, you have to put it here. So we put it here, we put it here on the message. So you're going to see on the form that it now has the asterisk right here with this red little dot saying that is required. So for example, if someone tries to submit, it's going to say that the form is empty. And for example, if I just assign a client and to put a message, it's going to say this field is required. So it's going to allow you also to validate those fields. Now, going back to our clients table, let's see another cool feature, right? We're going to add here a new one that is called Kanban, right? So we're going to add the Kanban view. And we're going to say which one is the grouping field, right? So in this case, we want to create a workflow. So Kanban, what it helps us is to create a workflow with different stages. And the stages that we have right now is the status, right? Because we have the stages of prospect, of interested, and then until purchase. So if you click here and you click done, you're going to see that it's going to organize the database in a different way. And you can even say, for example, if John is changing stage, you can even move them in this way. So if you have worked with Trello or Asana, you may have seen this kind of behavior. Now, here on Airtable, you can have that same behavior, and you're going to have at the same time a database here, like with all the information, but also you're going to have this view of the workflow, something more visual for you to manage. Okay, so that's it for today. So the idea today was to show you how could you use database relationships, what parent and child means, but also at the same time, you were able to create a whole new app for yourself. Right? So just start experimenting, go and play around with the different views, with the different settings. We're gonna see later in some other videos how to tailor or even improve with some more advanced features this CRM. But I think for the moment, it's a great start if you want to have a way of managing the relationship that you have, not just with clients, but maybe on procurement, maybe on financials or any business process. Okay, finally, just an invitation that if you like this video, please give us a share, a comment, or subscribe to our channel. And if you have an idea or maybe you have a problem that you want to address with tech, just let us know in the comments. We're gonna see how we can build a video around it. So we can explain more tech concepts and help you build more tech with no-code tools. Thank you so much and see you next time.